Hello, this is Dread from Epic Builds. In today's video topic, we'll be going over my Flame Reave Spellblade 2.0 build. A few patches ago, I played with the big AoE big damage Flame Reave build, and it was a huge success. I was very surprised that Flame Reave could pull such big numbers. I finished the build and was done with it right after the new unique ring Sunwreath was showcased, and then the plus level to skill affixes were added as well, allowing you to push the damage even further. So the main combo of this build is we're utilizing Firebrand's auto crit capability nodes, making it so that if we attack 3 times and have 3 charges of Firebrand, we auto crit, and then combining it with Flame Reave screen wide AoE node, so we're using the every 4th use of Flame Reave gives us 100% more range and stuff, while also using the circular node so that we can do screen wide AoE with Flame Reave, allowing us to clear echoes buttery smooth. And like it feels absolutely amazing. It was an absolute ride all the way up to Empowered Monos. After getting to Empowered Monos, I was surprised of how easy it was to farm. As like I was level 80, like less than level 80, like level 75 or something like that. Barely any gear, no damage on my weapons, just running just regular like implicit like crystal swords. It's like I kept adding damage mod after damage mod after damage mod, and I was doing completely fine. Like I was sailing. I did have to craft a little bit more dodge after that, but mainly just because getting up to like 50% dodge was pretty much mandatory, so that I wasn't dying every 5 seconds, because you do have to finish the combo, the 1-2-3 combo, and you can't do it. You have to be hitting enemies to do it. So it's not like as if you can stay away from enemies and be ranged. So you're still a melee build. It's just you have big AoE. And this was really good considering that the build was less than 24 hours old at the time of this recording. Like this was really amazing like results by this. I did but yeah, after crafting some more dodge, it was doing wonderfully. Speaking of the swords, though, the new crystal sword base, with its implicit giving you up to 200% increased melee elemental damage and then 20% increased attack speed with elemental skills, it definitely puts Spellblade back on the map in terms of damage potential. Being able to run dodge percentage on both of your suffixes on your swords is absolutely insane, especially on your crystal swords. It turns them into from, because before gearing for your weapons was kind of boring for Spellblade, because you'd like just get like a katana with added damage and dodge, and that's it. Now with crystal swords, oh my goodness, I have like 140% attack speed, I think, with Firebrand and Flame Reave. Like it's absolutely buttery smooth, absolutely amazing. I love it so much. Uh, Other things with the build. I ended up killing a Shade of Orbis. If you guys are looking in the background, I did kill him afterwards with the Ignite after I died. This build does not do well versus crit avoidance. So the way this works is when you auto crit, right, it's 100% chance to crit, but if enemies have crit avoidance, meaning like for instance like 45% crit avoidance, half the time your crit doesn't go through and you end up doing no damage. And as you can tell from that Shade of Orbis fight, I hit him for like 100k, more than 100k multiple times, but when I don't crit, oh boy, I hit like a wet noodle. So it's like crit avoidance is something you ignore. So another thing I also added with the build, so normally you wouldn't run the return node, the circle return node, but since we have so many extra skill points, thanks to the ring, Sunwreath, and the plus to skill gems, you can actually run the return node and it will pretty much double your damage. You do a little bit less damage with it, but the reason why I found it so useful is because if you have mods with your Monolith, like for instance, the enemies take less damage if they're at high health, what'll happen if with regular Flame Reave, without the circle coming back, what'll happen is you hit them, but since they take less damage because they're at high health, you don't end up one-shotting them. But then if you run the circle node, like the circle come back node, it'll come back, right? And then it will instantly hit again and then kill the enemy for you. So it actually gets around those kind of mods. So you can actually run those mods and not feel terrible. So that gives you even more mods to run. Like I said, the only ones you can't run right now, in my opinion, are crit avoidance and dodge. You should just ignore those two. Everything else is completely fine, even endurance. Like, you have so much damage, you should be able to one-shot everything. Now, a few other changes I made since the last one. I went with full fire this time, but there's a reason for that. So on our crystal swords, we have implicit attack speed, which means that I can run double flat on each sword and not have to worry about my attack speed like you would on the old versions, because the old versions had the issue where you'd have to run attack speed somewhere. But now that you don't have to, you can just run full flat everywhere, because after you get 300% crit chance, I mean, a critical strike multiplier, thanks to your amulet and your relic, right? You don't need more crit multi than 300%, to be honest. 400% is kind of like overkill. But at 300%, then you can run 4 flat rolls. Or I've been running 1 attack speed, 1 flat on one, and then 2 flat rolls. Because of that, you can run different kinds of elements. So for instance, I'm running fire and cold, fire and lightning, yada, yada, yada. It doesn't matter. As long as it's elemental damage, that's all that matters. Because there's one node inside Flame Reave that makes it so you deal more damage for against with fire damage. But if you look at all the other nodes, they're all more damage with melee attacks. So you can run as much flat Ellie as you want, and you don't have to ignore all these other sources of Ellie, and it lets you scale damage even further instead of shoehorning yourself into a specific damage type. Now, Shock is good. I had someone in my chat today, Zephyrus, he was running the Shock version, and he was doing completely fine with it. He was stun locking Oribus with it with the Shock version, which is very strong. But like I said, if you want more damage, this is definitely probably the way to go. With that being said, just so you guys know, I do stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/apprentice/epic builds. The link will be down in the description. With that being said, let's get into the build, shall we? Here we are in game with my build, Snyder's Cut. It's kind of a long kind of name. Pretty much we call this build Michael Bay because, 1, 2, 3, 4, bam, big explosions, right? Well, I accidentally messed up and chose the Avarice gloves instead of the Gambler's Fallacy. So I had to remake the build. And he's like, well, you can't call it Michael Bay anymore. I'm like, fine, we'll call it the Snyder's Cut then. So that's why we named it that. But anyways, so the build planner is currently being worked on, right? So for now, the full build guide, like the screenshots and stuff of the skills and all that, and the passive trees and all that, will be in my Discord. I'm going to make a special channel just for that, so that we can, so that you guys can see it. You guys can use it for now until build planners come out, and then when build planners come out, I'll just import this character into the build planner and put it in the description of the video. So let's go over it, shall we? So right now we're utilizing Flame Reave. So what we're doing is we're taking 4 nodes into Dancing Flames Travel. It gives us a little bit of attack speed. Then 1 node into Rhythm of Fire. So how this works is every 4th use of Flame Reave gives us 100% width, range, and damage. This is a lot of damage as well. Then we're also utilizing versatility, so that Firebrand or Mana Strike counts as Flame Reave uses for Rhythm of Fire, meaning that if we do 1, 2, 3, 4, it gives us the big explosion. Now, we're also taking 2 points travel into Heat Wave. This is more damage for us, but since we're more LE damage focused, we don't necessarily need this node. 1 point travel into Slash and Burn, then 3 points into Unbound Flames. Now, normally what we would do is we would take World Fire. This is what you would take if you are not currently utilizing the Sunwreath ring. So just think of this ring as +1 to skills for Flame Reave. Just don't overcomplicate it. It's absolutely amazing because it gives you an extra skill point pretty much. So we take 3 points into Unbound Flames so that our AoE is ginormous and screen wide so that we can clear Monoliths like it's nothing. Now, normally what you would do is you'd go up here and get Rolling Thunder for the shock stuff, but I opted out of that so we could go down here, take 3 points into Arcane Severance since it's just more melee damage, right? Generic, so you can run any kind of damage with this, and then 4 points into Ember Infusion, which gives us more melee damage as well. Since we're scaling elemental melee damage, we can just run any LE flat that we want, and it will always scale our damage. Now, what this also allows us to do is run Flame Collar. So Flame Reave returns to you. Now, there has been a little bit of issues with this on stream, we saw. So if we do this, 1, 2, 3, 4, as you can tell, the animation does not show it go back to you. It shows like it ends quickly, but as you can tell, if I hit the dummy, we can confirm that it does hit the dummy twice. So it will come all the way back to where you were when you casted it. It just does not show the animation. That's good to know. But yeah, that lets Flame Reave do a megaton of damage. Ignore the tooltip. That doesn't matter for this build. Now for Firebrand, that's the second most important part of this build. So we take 5 points into Pyro Shielding for ward and travel, 2 points into Wildfire, so we can have 6 stacks of Firebrand because we get like 5 flat fire damage per stack, which is really nice. Then 1 point into Incineration. Your next melee attack that is not Firebrand consumes all stacks of Firebrand, so we get 120% more damage from this, which is absolutely amazing. Then 1 node into Illuminating Fire. We consume 3 or more stacks of Firebrand, it guarantees a critical strike. So if we have 1, 2, 3 Firebrand, we always critically strike. We don't have to run crit on our gear, anything, it always critically strikes. And that's very, very strong because it allows us to focus more on flat damage and on crit multi instead of trying to build crit up, right? Then, of course, we take 3 points into Fulmination, so we get attack speed, so that we get max stacks quicker. Because as you can tell, with this build, we actually run the 10 stacks of Blade Weaving, so having that attack speed before we attack is very nice for single target. Then, of course, we take 2 points into Undying Fire for a little bit more duration. Then 3 points into Fading Flame, so we get a bunch of ward when we consume our stacks. That's pretty much it for Firebrand. Now for Enchant Weapon, we take 5 points into Celerity, 5 points into Molten Steel for a bunch of flat, bunch of attack speed, 1 node into Cleanse by the Elements, so that we cleanse like slows, chills, and stuff like that. Then 4 points into Concentration for duration, 4 points into Efficacy, 1 point into Desperation as well, so that when we're missing mana, we actually deal more increased elemental damage. Now that I changed the build a little bit, I thought I was going to go mainly just fire damage, but what we can do now is we could take 5 points off of Efficacy, right? And then 4 points off of Efficacy, and then 1 point out of Desperation. And we can put them into, where is it? I think it's this node, yes. Thundering. We can take some points and put it into Thundering and get some added damage. This will push our damage almost to 1,000,000 damage, I believe, with it on. We can also grab this Frostbrand as well. But like I said, I like the increased elemental damage, the minus mana cost, because if you did not know, they nerfed mana regeneration in this patch, so we have a little bit less mana gen than normal. So before you were mana neutral, now you kind of suck up a little bit too much mana, so I decided to just cut some mana by using Efficacy. And of course, get a bunch of increased damage. That's pretty much it for Enchant Weapon. Teleport is your usual utility setup for the resistance and for the increased elemental damage. It's pretty simple. This will be in the Discord as well. It's pretty simple. Same with Flame Reave. Flame Reave's the general utility setup. Just, mitigate as much damage as possible, get as much ward as possible, make it so it casts on stun, so that, it automatically does it for you. It's kind of like cast on damage taken from PoE. Very, very strong. Saves you in a lot of places when you don't have the physical dexterity to actually hit flame ward when you're about to die. Now, other than that, that's pretty much it for the skills. Now, for the passives here, I really do not like how it's horizontal, but whatever. We take 8 points into Elementals for increased fire, cold, and lightning, since we're always just generally doing elemental damage. 8 points into Scholar for flat health, because that's one of the ways we get a little bit tankier, because we're dodge and health right now. That's the main ways we're scaling tankiness. 5 points into Mage Flurry for the increased attack speed, very useful. 5 points into Knowledge of Destruction. By the time you get to level 100, you should have this maxed out for the 30% crit multi, which is nice. Then for Spellblade, we take 8 points into Infused Weapon for the flat damage, because it's very strong. 16 flat is a lot of flat. 6 points into Elemental Affinity, so we get a little bit more res and increased damage. 5 points into Arcane Shielding, so that we can take 10% less damage, very strong. Just damage reduction is very strong right now. 8 points into Fireblood, so we get more HP and flat fire damage, right? 5 points into Essence Duel so that we get more attack speed so that we can do our combo faster. 5 points into Mana Reaver. This is how we sustain mana instead of utilizing Mana Strike. This alone will make sure that you are always having enough mana to actually utilize Flame Reave. Because even if you're negative mana, Firebrand costs 0 mana, so if you just spam your Firebrand, you should eventually get some mana back and be able to do the combo. 1 point into Gemini. Now, this was nerfed, so we do take 15% increased damage instead of 12%. I have no idea why it was nerfed, but whatever. Dual wield wasn't even in a good spot anyways, other than Rogue. So whatever. We'll ignore that. 8 points into Prismatic Blade because it gives us dexterity for dodge, and then, obviously a bunch of melee flat. Then 10 points into Volker's Razor for a bunch of increased elemental damage, as we are lacking a lot of increased damage as the main issue with the build. You'd eventually take 10 points into Outlast for the HP. The dot damage is nothing for you. Then 10 points into Blade Weaver. So my old version, we did not have enough attack speed to get to 10 stacks reliably, right? In the old version. But now that we're running the Crystal Sword base with the attack speed, we have enough attack speed to reach the 10 stacks and do our combo properly. So what that means is we can actually run 10 points in Blade Weaver and utilize it to do a lot of single target damage. So screw the person who said my damage was low on the last build guide. So we're actually doing damage now. I believe it with the full combo here. One moment. About like 500k, considering like we're level 86 with shitty idols and like shitty setup. Like, we're doing fine on damage. And that's pretty much it for the tree. One thing you can do if you're finding yourself having issues with mana is you can grab the mana regen here that's in Brainstorm now. That should be able to bring your mana all the way back up to like 10, and you should be fine on mana. But if, like I said, if that's an issue. Now for gearing, for idols, don't ask me. I need to finish the campaign. So I normally finish the campaign at the Tomb of Morodatus, which is here in the Divine Era. Now, they changed it so that, that's not the case anymore. That's not how you get all your idols. But I'll be honest, most of the time it feels like as though I don't even need this last idol slot unless if I'm running like 4x1s or whatever. But like I said, you can always get the rest of your idols. I was just too lazy because I did this all in like one day. So I need to go and get that finished. So we'll be doing that later. But for idols, we increase melee damage, increase melee elemental damage as well. You can also get increased fire damage on these suffixes, which I would probably run. Then, of course, you can run HP idle, then res, HP, whatever you really want on these. It doesn't matter. Then on the 3x1s, I'm not completely sure what I want to run on them. Right now, I'd be running melee damage, melee flat, but I have no clue, to be honest. Probably run a 1x2 and run res, so you can save a suffix or two on your gear, probably. That's what I would do. But it's just kind of... Idols right now are not a solved system right now like they were, and I'm still trying to figure it out, so pardon me on that. So, but for gearing's solved. So we're running Crystal Swords. As you can tell, that is a lot of melee elemental damage and increased melee attack speed as well. So I'm running double flat. Make sure fire is one of them, and then it can be lightning or cold the other one. Dodge rating. That's all you need. That's literally all you need. You want T5 dodge, T5 melee fire, T5 melee cold. This one, I run one roll of melee attack speed. You don't need it, but it's especially if you have max rolled Crystal Swords. But I just this dropped like this, so I thought why not? So, but still, you'd rather want the flat melee. But this just dropped like this, and I didn't want to lose it because I had a high implicit as well. Actually, we can re-roll its thing. Wait a second. No. Okay, I guess we're stuck with that. But that being said, that's fine with the swords. Absolute insane bases now. I have so many other plans to use these bases for other builds, so make sure to check out that when that comes out. For Silver Crown, increased melee elemental damage, probably vitality here or cooldown recovery speed. The only reason you want to run cooldown recovery speed is so that you could run Enchant Weapon more, but probably just vitality, so you're tankier. You want to be using the Solar Crown base, which is increased fire damage, and then dodge and HP. Amulet, crit, dodge, HP. You want the obviously this. Look at the instability on this fucking thing. Look at that. Oh my goodness. Then for the chest, vitality, dodge, dodge. You'd be wanting to run plus to Firebrand as well, but I was not lucky. This fractured before I could put it on, and I did not want to get rid of this chest because, as you can tell, it's a large majority of my dodge. Sunwreath, this is the only required unique. Now, you don't require it, if that makes sense. It would be nice if you had it, but you don't require it. You just have one less skill point that you'd have to put into Worldfire. The ring itself is pretty good because it gives you melee fire, gives you it just gives you melee fire. The implicit's really good. They buffed that recently as well this patch. And just treat it as a +1 to skills ring, and it's fine, right? For the other ring, we run increased damage, res, dodge. If you get some better res with your idols, you can actually dump this res and run HP instead, so you're tankier. Or crit avoidance, probably in this case, or endurance percentage. I'm a little bit missing on that. The belt, I got lucky. I dropped a flat dodge like this, but you'd rather want dodge plus percentage dodge, and then the dodge rating on potion use, and then you'd also want fire damage on the prefix. So it's not too lucky with that. Gloves, attack speed, the prefix, second prefix doesn't matter. The dodge, and then hybrid health. And then, of course, on the Crusader Gauntlet, so that you can get it. I have a lot of blessings, by the way, just so you know. I do have a lot of blessings, like a bunch of res blessings. I have a necrotic res blessing, I think. I have a void res blessing. And I have a fizz res blessing, I think. So you might have to run a little bit more res and less dodge in this, but you should still be fine. For the boots, dodge, movement speed, you want vitality on this as well. You want the Heroborean boots because the cold res, so that when you teleport, you're max on res. Then for the Scrying Eye, you want the increased element, like the increased crit, HP, res, whatever you can manage. You can actually get rid of this res as well because we have more res, so it's like whatever. But yeah, on the other prefix, you probably want increased fire damage. And with that being said, that's pretty much it for gearing. That's pretty much it for everything. With that being said, thank you all for watching, and have a wonderful rest of your day wherever you're at, and bye!